All right.
Hey guys, our presentation is on the intersectionality of ecological restoration. Essentially, this idea is that all the ecosystems in the world are open systems, meaning that matter and energy are passed between them. This means that a change in one ecosystem will have an effect on another. And this principle entails that we use a holistic approach to environmental restoration and understand how the restoration of one environment can be a tool to restore others. In essence, we must use an ecosystem approach, which means using a strategy for the integrated management of land, water, and living resources that promotes conservation and sustainable use in an equitable way.
All right. This brings us to agriculture because agriculture is one of the main contributors of pollutants to the environment, both land and water. Regenerative agriculture practices, such as permaculture, can really mediate these effects by modeling itself after environmental interaction. This way, they have increased biodiversity and matched inputs and outputs, just like ecosystems would in real life. Uh, by doing this, they reduce the ecological strain on surrounding areas, and instead of requiring fertilizer, instead use inputs from the forest, like wood for compost or flora and fauna to provide pollination. And this way, the nutrients that are disposed of from the built-up health of a permaculture farm are beneficial, and instead of the eutrophication from nitrogen fertilizers. Figure one actually shows a permaculture structure, and that's maximizing water retention and keeping all useful parts of the farm located nearby. That way, energy use is minimized, water retention is maximized, and runoff is minimized. That way, with less inputs, it's more economically viable for a farm to do. Not only is their product increased, but their costs of energy and input are lowered.
And that brings us to ocean health. Um, Ocean health is subject to the effects of changes in almost every ecosystem, as they're the ultimate sink for water resources as they flush into the oceans. For example, when large scale farms dump nutrients into the oceans, it can cause eutrophication. These effects can be decreased by adopting responsible farming practices and restoring key ecosystems. Coastal forests and mangroves serve as a filter for materials and nutrients entering oceans, which can significantly decrease net waste being flushed into the oceans. But also, a transition towards local sustainable farming techniques also reduces ocean waste. Adoption of permaculture farms can reduce nutrient runoff and other waste products of farming. But also, the implementation of responsible aquacultures can reduce pressures on wildlife that is subject to overfishing and other environmental impacts of large scale fishing. Ultimately, the reduction of ocean pollution and pressures on food webs will result in the resurgence of habitats, which protects global biodiversity.
Ecosystem management also has the ability to promote ocean health through the implementation of multi-trophic aquaculture, which are the dynamic practices of farming organisms such as seaweeds and shellfish, as they are effective pollutant filters. This form of management has the potential to increase food production by upwards to 74% by the year 2050, which will effectively uplift the coastal community supported by these industries.
For the forest part, forests play a key role in ecological restoration by also acting as carbon heat sinks, reducing the greenhouse gases, regulating the climate, and reducing ocean acidification. Forest also improves water quality by filtering pollutants and controlling nutrient flow, preventing the ocean from eutrophication. Additionally, forests provide habitats for the diverse species, supporting the biodiversity of its nearby areas. During the 20th century, forest restoration helped slow regional warming and provided vulnerable global climate adaptation benefits, lowering the surface temperature by 1 to 2 Celsius compared to non-forested areas. The figure 2 shows the variation of natural forest regeneration global-wide, and each unit of data points represents the above-ground biomass stock by the unit of 1 ton per hectare. Please.
Figure 3 represents how the holistic restoration of multiple ecosystems has a compounding beneficial effect on carbon sequestration, as illustrated by this figure.
And that's it for our presentation. Hope you learned something about the total restoration of different ecological spheres.